All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our BCBA practice question series, where we're going through another set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out behavioranalyst.study.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. At the local pool, the manager tells the lifeguards if you properly wear protective eyewear every day for 1 month, you'll receive an additional paid vacation day. Although this is a brand new contingency, adherence to wearing eyewear immediately improves. What describes this contingency? So we have a contingency question, and with contingencies, we are typically dealing with either rule governed contingencies or behavior or contingency shaped behaviors. And there's some pretty crucial differences between the two. Now, in this case, we have a manager who tells the lifeguards, if you wear protective eyewear, you get a paid vacation day. So immediately the manager has established the if-then contingency. You get a vacation day if you wear the eyewear. Now, the thing is, the question also says it's a brand new contingency, meaning none of these lifeguards have experienced or contacted this contingency before. Regardless, they all start to wear eyewear immediately. So when behavior is changed through some sort of verbal statement that states the consequence and states the contingency, what do we call that? Well, we call that rule governed behavior, right? Because the verbal statement is controlling the behavior. None of these lifeguards have contacted the contingency yet. It's brand new. So not quite is the behavior contingency shaped, but it is governed by that rule. Now, once the lifeguards meet the contingency and get a vacation day, then we can start to say, okay, it is being shaped by that contingency. But as of now, it is all rule governed. Then C, behavior shaped by continuous reinforcement. We don't have continuous reinforcement, right? Because they have to do it every day for a month to get reinforced. And then D, behavior affected by a concurrent schedule. We don't have a concurrent schedule at play. There's one behavior with one schedule, and it's rule-governed behavior. A young child developed a reaction that caused her to jump whenever she heard thunder because thunderstorms often caused her old house to shake. Her family moved to a new home where storms frequently occurred, but the house no longer shook. Gradually, she stopped showing fear during thunderstorms. What best explains the child's reduced reaction? So let's think about this, right? We have the child's reaction. Now, if the question had said the child's reflex, then this becomes a extremely obvious question. But as is, it's still not that difficult. Because what reaction are we looking at? We have a child that jumps whenever she hears thunder because the thunderstorms were paired with the house shaking. So that reflex of jumping from the thunder, what would we consider that? Well, we'd like to consider that a respondent reflex, right? It isn't based on a consequence. There is no consequence for her jumping. All that is happening is we have a stimulus that is causing that reflex. Now, if we want to break it down even further, right, the thunder might have been a neutral stimulus, and it was maybe paired with the house shaking, which could have been conditioned or unconditioned. And then the thunder became a conditioned stimulus, causing the jumping, right? That's how the respondent conditioning worked. Now, when her family moved to the new home, the storms occurred, but the house didn't shake. And so that pairing was removed. So what do we call it when the conditioned stimulus is presented without the stimulus that it was paired with? So in this case, the thunder is presented, right? But the house is no longer shaking. A, operant extinction occurred as the house no longer shook from thunder. Well, operant extinction happens when we have a withdrawal or a withholding of consequences, right? A withholding of consequences, that's how we use operant extinction. This is not a consequence question, right? It's a respondent question. So B, respondent extinction occurred as the house no longer shook from thunder. Those two things, the thunder and the house shaking, were unpaired, and thus respondent extinction occurred. C, through habilitation, the child no longer exhibited increased heart rate. Now, careful, right? One, right, we're not necessarily looking at the heart rate, we're looking at her jumping, but and her fear. But two, habilitation isn't even the correct word, right? Habituation is what we're looking for when we think about the repeated introduction or delivery of a stimulus, which then reduces the response or reflex to it, right? Not habilitation. We're thinking habituation as far as respondent or presentation of that stimulus over and over. And then D, differential reinforcement led to alternative responses to thunderstorms. Well, no, we're not differentially reinforcing these responses. What's happened is we've broken that pairing between the house shaking and the thunderstorms, and now the child is no longer reacting as much. Two food trucks operate at a busy downtown park. Truck A consistently serves customers rapidly, while Truck B offers a discounted price but frequently has longer wait times. After several weeks, Truck A consistently has more customers. According to the matching law, which best explains this outcome? Pretty straightforward question, right? We just have to know what matching law says. And what does matching law say? Matching law says behavior is going to go where reinforcement is. And we want, or we're looking at more immediate reinforcement leading to a higher rate of behavior, right? If I have an FR2 schedule and FR4, we can predict that behavior is going to happen 2 times as many times for this schedule as it is over here because it's likely to produce more reinforcement. So in this case, if truck A is serving customers rapidly, while truck B has longer wait times, even though there's a discount, who's getting served quicker? Well, the people who go to truck A. And so matching law would follow that truck A is going to get more customers. So what explains it? A, customers are equally likely to visit both trucks, but the price discount at truck B eventually loses its reinforcing effectiveness. There's no indication that that occurred. That's making just a lot of assumptions. There's no information to back that up. So A is out. B, customers allocate their responses proportionally to the rate of reinforcement, choosing the shorter wait at truck A over the discount at truck B. Yes, they're looking at, okay, I can get food served quicker here, right? Even though it costs a little more, I'm going to get reinforcement faster. So matching law says I'm going to go choose B. C, or I'm going to choose truck A, answer B. C, customers' response rates shift unpredictably between the two trucks due to intermittent reinforcement. Well, that's not the case, right? It says truck A consistently has more customers. And then D, customers do not care about the cost of the truck, only the quality of the food. Again, a lot of assumptions, kind of the same issue as A. So the best answer here is B. Now, this is not necessarily a difficult question, but it is longer. The answer choices are longer. And if we're not reading carefully, we may miss information or we may unintentionally add information. It's why we always attack the question first, try to predict an answer, and then get to the answer choices. Pablo, a behavior analyst, notices a lack of reliability between data recorded by Dan and Dave, his behavior technicians, who are tracking aggression in the clinic. To address this concern, what would make the most sense for Pablo to do first? So we have a situation where Pablo is looking at Dan and Dave recording aggression, and he notices a lack of reliability. What do we mean when we say data is reliable? When we think about data, we want data that is accurate, that is valid, and then, of course, reliable. Accuracy says we are recording the true amount or exactly what is occurring. Reliability says we can record that same thing over and over again. Validity says we're recording the correct behavior. So if the data is not reliable, it means Dan and Dave are not consistent in their measurement. So what can Pablo do first? A, change the measurement system to ensure that the actual value is measured accordingly. One, changing the measurement system won't necessarily address this issue, right? Because Dan and Dave are just recording the wrong thing or can't be trusted to record the same thing over and over. Two, when we're looking for the true value, we're more worried about accuracy. In this case, we're worried about Dan and Dave consistently recording the same thing over and over again. B, conduct a new functional analysis to redetermine the function of the behavior. It's not going to address the issue of reliability. C, observe Dan and Dave to check for observer drift. Pablo could definitely do that. Observer drift is when the measurement starts to change. When the observer of note, who were Dan and Dave in this situation, they might be observing the wrong behavior, they might be measuring the wrong way. Checking for observer drift might improve reliability. And then D, report only the data that is more reliable out of the two technicians. Well, you can't just throw data out because it's not reliable. That's a problem that needs to be fixed. So out of all these answer choices, the best answer is going to be check for observer drift, at least first. If that doesn't work, then we need to retrain. If that doesn't work, then maybe we can go to a new measurement system that's going to help Dan and Dave. But the first things first is we need to make sure Dan and Dave are observing and measuring all the right things, right? So we're looking for validity, which then we can look at, are we using the measurement system correctly so we can improve reliability? At the city library, Sarah needs to track how many books visitors check out each day. Sarah is busy during the day managing employees and helping customers, so she checks the computer records at closing time to count how many books were borrowed that day. Sarah's method is most closely related to blank. Easy questions to finish on. When you get an easy question, don't overthink it. Trust your preparation, answer it, move on. Looking at Sarah's measurement method, Sarah is tracking how many books visitors check out each day. So how many looks like some sort of count or frequency. However, she's busy during the day, right? She has other things to do. So how does she measure? She checks records at closing time to see how many books were borrowed that day. So is Sarah actually watching every single person check out a book and counting that number? No. So it is not continuous measurement because she's not continuously measuring the behavior. What she's doing is permanent product recording. She is going at the end of the day, seeing the product or the result of the behavior and taking that as measurement. C and D, planned activity check and momentary time sampling. Well, planned activity check is momentary time sampling just in a group setting. And momentary time sampling is when we have an interval and we look at the very end of the interval if that behavior occurred. Obviously, not what Sarah's doing here. Sarah is looking at the outcome or the product of the behavior and then using that for measurement. She's using permanent product recording. Thanks so much for watching. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. Please subscribe. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard,